Hello and welcome to another Times Radio Members Question and Answer. Today we're answering comments from our channel members on Frontline episodes and other videos about the war in Ukraine and its impact on the world stage. I'm Philip Ingram, a former senior British military intelligence officer who commentates on all matters geopolitics, defence, security, cyber and anything else that people ask me to, but I also present Times Radio Frontline. So let's get straight into your questions. First one comes from Marty. Hello again, Marty. You say, well, Ukraine brings about their own sanctions against Russia. I think you're paraphrasing something that Zelensky has said, and in a very direct and meaningful way. Yes, it is, with a big bang. Reports have exports of oil and gas down by 50%. That must be massive. Marty, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but you're in the right ballpark. And it is massive. It's hurting the Russian economy enormously, and Ukraine is hitting those or imposing those sanctions not just on the oil refineries. And if the refineries can't process what they've got in storage, the storage has to remain full. If the storage remains full, then they can't pump more out of the ground or the sea. And if their exports are affected, they can't empty the storage as well. And of course, Ukraine is hitting the storage facilities, so that is reducing the capacity of storage across Russia. Oil and gas industry is linked so closely to the Russian economy. The oil and gas industry is creaking, the economy is creaking, and it's interesting to see the Ukrainians continuing to attack it. A lot of the capability that they're destroying, Russia does not have the ability to replace because of international sanctions. So this is a tactic that it will take some time before it has its effect, but will have a massive effect against Russia's ability to continue to prosecute the war. So very fair points. Next points come from FW. If Putin really thinks that the snail-like pace of the Russian advance means the war is going well for Russia, he's seriously delusional. More likely, he's simply trying to convince the Russian people that victory is at hand, right? They will, of course, not read or hear anything to the contrary, but they only need a map to see the reality of war. I don't think many of the Russians have got access to a map showing the reality of war, and yes, they are subject to disinformation. But putting the snail's pace of advance into context, UK Defence Intelligence analysed how long it would take Russia to capture the rest of the Donbass, the bit that they don't have. And at its current rate of advance, they say it would take Russia another 4 years and cost them 2 million more casualties. Again, putting into context, in the same time frame during the Second World War, Russia pushed the Germans back from the outskirts of Moscow to the outskirts of Berlin. They've advanced about 40 kilometers in the east, not much at all. And within, I say, advanced, Ukraine is trading space for time. Ukraine is allowing or enabling Russia to advance slowly. But what it's doing in that interim period is it's costing the Russians huge numbers of casualties, both in vehicles and people. But it's using then that time as well to attack at the operational level, this ability for Russia to continue to support the tactical effort. That is something that is a slightly longer term tactic, but is a tactic that will work in the very long term. Russia is not in a good position. And those that say that Russia is winning by just measuring how many centimeters they advance each day in the east don't understand the nature of warfare. So a very good point. Next point comes from Astro, and you say Witkoff and Kushner are inspirations to the Americans. If these two zeros can get rich, who couldn't? Well, yes, Astro, I think Witkoff and Kushner are inspirations to the Americans. But if those two zeros can't get can get rich, who couldn't? Well, clearly I'm a zero as well, or lower than a zero, because I'm not as rich as them, and I wish I was. I think their business deals, their links, and all the rest of it. Maybe they were born into privilege. Maybe they've worked hard for it. I don't know where Steve Witkoff came from. Jared Kushner, has come into one of the richest families in the United States. But they are heroes to the American people, but to the MAGA crowd. I don't think they're proving themselves in any way, shape, or form to the international community. Certainly Steve Witkoff isn't. And it's quite clear that there are tensions between Witkoff and Rubio. Just look at the body language when they're both in the same room, and they do not get on well together at all. But interesting point, Astro. You're just winding up as ever. Next point comes from Randy. Randy, on the frozen Russian assets. Why not have several or many European countries each make separate loans that total $136 billion refundable if Russian money is available in the future? Very fair point, Randy. Why? I don't know. This is a national decision. And of course, the UK is just in the process of getting an $80 billion loan based on Russian assets, or unfreezing $80 billion of Russian assets to give to Ukraine on the back of the report that came out yesterday with regard to the poisoning of Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in Salisbury in 2018 using the nerve agent Novichok. And is using that as the excuse to seize and release Russian assets. Hopefully that will act as the stimulant for the rest of Europe to do the same, because it seems that the UK has led the way in support for Ukraine in getting main battle tanks and other firsts into Ukraine. They may not be huge in capability or in size, but that first seems to then open the gates for everyone else to follow. So hopefully that will happen. Next point comes from Bob. And Bob, you say the longer the fight goes on, the greater chance of Ukrainian victory. Slava Ukraini. Bob, yeah, you're right. But I'll caveat that with the fact that the Ukrainian people are suffering. The casualty rate is very high. Now, they know that they're in a war of national survival, so they will go on for as long as it wants. Vladimir Putin wants it to go on for a lot longer because he hopes the international community will suffer Ukraine fatigue. And we're seeing that a little bit. And as there's more Ukraine fatigue, Vladimir Putin is trying to use that to create fracture lines and fissures across international organizations, between countries, and internally within countries. And he's very good at that. So it's a fine balance as to whether it goes on longer or not. Ukraine is doing well with the time that they're buying, but they could do more, and we need to supply them more weapons to do more. And then final point comes from Mark. Mark, you say, I think Jared Kushner is going for the leadership position later. Isn't this just a setup? Kushner could be. I don't know. Internal US politics, I think we will start to see as we get to the end of Trump's administration or after the midterms, I think we'll start to see an awful lot of maneuvering going on between a number of different people that are going for the leadership. I've even heard that Donald Trump's younger son, Barron Trump, is being set up potentially to lead later. He's very young, but we'll see what happens with that. I think we are in for an interesting domestic political time in the United States post the midterms, and how that's going to play out in support for Ukraine and everything else. I just don't know at this stage. Too difficult to call. So anyway, thanks for watching this week's question and answer and for posting your questions. Remember, if you want exclusive access to our videos and have your questions answered, please sign up for Times Radio membership. And Frontline is also available on your favorite podcast platforms. Just search for Times Radio Frontline. And of course, you can get your day-to-day news by just going to thetimes.com. Thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.